Hayes back to Vasquez. Count it! Freshman Queen who's driving, floats it. And here comes the message on the floor. Here with 2 seconds. Here it goes for the win.
What is up, Maryland basketball fans? Welcome into another Fear the Podcast. I'm Matt Modderno. Pleased to be joined here by my guy, Karl Heiser. Karl, you cover these teams both. You're locked in on both these squads, so I couldn't think of anybody better to come on and just talk about this matchup. This is a huge one here in the DMV. So first question, how are you? And second question, how hyped are you about this matchup?
I'm doing well. Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited for this game. Been looking forward to it ever since I saw that it was going to be on the schedule. And this is the kind of game where you kind of see it and you think, why is this not a thing every year? There's such a rich basketball tradition in this area. Both these programs have their fair share of history. And I think the last time these two met, I want to say that was the Kevin Huerter game-saving block game. So it's been a while.
I was at that one. It was awesome. It was nice to be downtown for that. I remember getting very, very inebriated and then going to California Tortilla after and hanging out with some coworkers after the fact that we're Terps as well. So that was a lot of fun. I feel bad about this because I do like Georgetown. I will root for them in most neutral matchups, but in this particular one, I love them, but I hope Maryland rips their heart out of their chest while it's still beating, or whatever terrible expression you want to use here. But it'd be cool if it's a good game along the way here, and both teams look good as long as Maryland wins at the end.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, my primary loyalty as a fan is to Maryland, but most of my time from a media perspective has been spent with Georgetown. Sure. So, I kind of have that dueling thing going on, but
I respect it. So we'll have you kind of talk more about the Georgetown side of things. I'll cover more of the Maryland side of things as we go through here. But just, I don't know, for any Terps fans listening to this who haven't paid attention to the Ed Cooley era, haven't seen anything about this team going into it, what should they know about this particular Georgetown team?
Yeah, so I was thinking about this matchup, and I think both teams in a few ways are kind of similar. Both are pretty gritty defensive teams. I could see this game turning into a total rock fight because I think the jury's still out for both teams on whether or not they can really shoot. But both have athletes. They can get out in transition if they need to. Defensively, it could be an absolute masterclass, I think, or it could just be very, very ugly basketball. And both these coaches, they know how to win ugly. So
they're okay with that.
Not totally out of the question. For Maryland fans, you'll see a familiar face on the Georgetown side in Deshaun Harris-Smith. Kind of sort of a revenge game, but also there's nobody left at the Maryland side that he would have revenge on.
Revenge at the fans. That's basically, we're the only ones that survived the Willard era at this point.
Yeah, unless he wants revenge on Lucas Hotel for some reason, but I can't imagine that's the case. But you'll see him, I think, used in a much sort of a different role than he was at Maryland. At Maryland, they kept kind of wanting him to develop the jump shot, to be this kind of off-ball guy. At Georgetown, at least yesterday against Morgan State, he was thriving in transition. And that's kind of where DHS is best, is when he can just be a bowling ball and get downhill and use his strength. And he's actually a pretty underrated decision maker in the open floor. And he just seems to be in a much better spot for his skill set. We've seen this, going back to Global Jam when Georgetown was in Canada. So maybe a revenge game from a production or a performance standpoint, but maybe not a mentality standpoint.
I like him. I will always like him. He didn't perform as well as I think anyone involved wanted him to be. And sometimes that just doesn't work from a fit perspective. I hope he has nothing but success again with this game withstanding. He had 10 points in their opener, which was an 87-70 win over Morgan State. He was 4 for 7 from the field, only took 1 3, but like you said, got downhill a lot, played good defense, was switchable defensively. So I think Ed Cooley's going to figure out how to use him, and Cooley just feels okay with deploying a bunch of athletes at multiple positions, and just they're going to cause havoc here on the perimeter. I think that's the biggest thing I'm worried about from the Maryland perspective, starting 3 freshman guards in the exhibition game and in this most recent game against Coppin State. We'll see if that's still the case. David Coit will have another game under his belt. Isaiah Watts will have another game under his belt. Who knows? Maybe Miles Rice makes a surprise appearance here to give them an extra ball handler. We'll see. For me, it's the perimeter defense that was really the thing I would be most worried about if I were Buzz Williams. In the front court, Vince Uwachukwu that comes over here from St. John's via USC. Originally, people may remember he had the basically a heart attack on the court for USC and battled back through that. Very good rim protector, mobile guy for somebody his size. Had 7 points, 4 rebounds in 16 minutes. It's really a platoon in the front court with him and Julius Halifanua, who had 3 points, 8 rebounds in 15 minutes. So they're kind of doing center by committee, whereas Maryland is this is our center. We're going to lean into Pharrell Payne on everything. I mean, let's just spend a minute on that matchup, Karl. How do you see that one playing out?
Yeah, so one thing I noticed with Georgetown yesterday is, they may not have the lottery type talent of a Thomas Sorber down low. So they are kind of doing it by committee. But I do think that the average rotation player for this year's Georgetown team is better than last year's Georgetown team.
For sure.
And so that was, I think, most evident in the front court, where last year you'd kind of have, and this is no disrespect to a guy like Drew Fielder, but you'd have a major drop-off going from Thomas Sorber to Drew Fielder or Jordan Burks or anybody in terms of both post-scoring and interior defense. Whereas I think this year it's a little more level depending on who is in for Georgetown. You can get solid minutes out of a guy like Halifanua. You can get solid minutes out of Iwachukwu. And maybe they won't, jump off the page and just dominate from, an interior scoring perspective. But, they give you solid production and solid minutes when they're out there.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. I think the depth is an interesting one here. If Maryland is still a little on the injured front and guys aren't playing, full complement of potential minutes here, Georgetown is definitely the deeper team and more equipped to survive some foul trouble or an injury or anything like that. So I think that's something you've got to look to avoid if you're Maryland. I do think they have an advantage with Pharrell Payne from an individual standpoint. So for them, got to keep him out of foul trouble and on the court as much as possible. This is probably one where you want to lean on him to play 30 plus minutes if you can get away with it. From the guard position here, Darius Adams has played a lot for Maryland, been trying to get to the free throw line here as much as he humanly can. That seems to be his superpower. KJ Lewis is just the dude who will strap you up without needing to ever foul you, it seems like. So that's another one where I'm particularly worried. These are bigger guards for Maryland for the most part. So I think they need a big game from David Coit, like a more sure-handed, smaller ball handler. He's not going to get stripped as easily and maybe has the quickness to exploit some things. Anything that you would see out of that sort of guard matchup?
Yeah, KJ Lewis is a dog on defense, and I'm not breaking any news there. Sort of similar to Micah Peavy last year, Duncanville product, fantastic on-ball defender. I'm not sure if he has quite the same, offensive ceiling of a Micah Peavy, or if he'll have nearly as many of these kind of home run defensive plays where he's stripping a guy and taking it all the way down the floor for the flush. Like Micah Peavy was doing that, it felt like once every game last year. But I maintain that KJ Lewis is one of the most underrated transfers in the sport, and I think he's going to be really, really important for Georgetown this year. I spent a couple possessions in yesterday's game just trying to track KJ Lewis on defense, and he's just it's like he's teleporting out there. And even if he's not directly making a play on the ball, he just has such a great understanding of where to be to make, his opponent uncomfortable and to force them to cough it up, maybe like one or two passes down the line. He's just a special defender and could really just wreak havoc on really any opponent. So
I think if I'm Maryland, my priority here is ball security in this one. I do not want to give Georgetown access to free points in their Morgan State win. They were pretty good about that. Well, they had 18 second chance points. They had 29 points off turnovers. They only had 7 turnovers themselves. So both these teams, I think, want to turn you over and score off those possessions. And I think it's going to be important to see which team can limit, both of those things, limit the turnovers for themselves and limit the points off turnovers for the other team. But for this Georgetown team, they had 29 fast break points as well. So they want to get it. They want to run if they can in transition. They've got good finishers, like I said, with the athletes. So for Maryland, if I'm them, I just, how do you avoid turning this ball over against this Georgetown team? Is it just, what would you do if you're them, Karl? I'm still trying to figure out a way here of how Guillermo Del Pino doesn't end up with 6 turnovers with these dudes hawking him the whole time.
Yeah, to be honest, Alpino might have a bit of a rough night out there. This is the type of game where you like to have maybe more of a veteran presence out there,
Yeah,
like a
exactly.
Miles Rice, and so him potentially being unavailable could definitely be a problem for Maryland in terms of ball security. So we'll have to see what things look like, in Friday's game. But you kind of mentioned that Maryland didn't really get out and run as much in their game against Coppin State as maybe they have the athletes to do that a little bit
They
more.
got out there a little bit, but not as much as I would like overall. They had 14 fast break points. I'd love to see double that potentially, if they could get away with it. But this is a team that doesn't seem to want to play fast despite having the athletes to do it, which is weird to me.
Yeah, you might be forced to do that a little bit against this Georgetown team. We'll have to see. Both teams will maybe slow it down, although I don't know if that will be to their benefit or
Yeah.
their detriment, really. I mean, Georgetown really struggled to shoot the ball, especially in the half court yesterday. And with Maryland, I think, like I said, jury's still kind of out on whether or not they're going to be able to knock down shots. And so it might actually benefit Maryland to play a little bit faster, maybe not have to spend so much time with the ball, and shorter possessions might actually help them in terms of turnovers. We'll see.
Yeah, I think that's well said. A good way to look at it. The question for this Maryland team, I would have said, is can they shoot the ball at all here? And I've maintained all offseason just be like 34%, and that's a pretty good place to be for them, given all the other things they do well. They were 34.5% in this win over Coppin State. Similar question applies to Georgetown, though. You touched on it there. They were 15.5% from three against a not particularly stellar defense in Morgan State. This is a Maryland team that is happy to give up non-rhythm threes. Like, they'll let you take as many threes as you want as long as they're making them tough on you and not collapsing them. They don't want like kick out threes to wide open stationary shooters. I guess just from what you've seen, can this Georgetown team actually shoot the ball?
So they did a good job yesterday at generating open looks. It's just that they weren't falling. And post game, Ed Cooley said that he was happy with the guys who were taking the shots, and he didn't really feel like they took a bad 3-point shot, maybe one or two in a shot clock situation. But overall, it seemed like they were getting the shots they wanted. But Malik Mack, 1 for 5 from three. Kayvon Mulready, 1 for 7 from three. The team as a whole, 15%, 4 for 26. So, that's kind of like the big X factor for this Georgetown team, I feel like, is what kind of, perimeter attack they have. And I'd expect that it gets a little better when a guy like Langston Love is active. But overall, it might be a pretty rough showing in terms of shooting on Friday.
Looking at this roster, it's interesting. They both were like fairly balanced scoring the ball. Maryland had 5 guys in double figures. Georgetown had 3, but then 3 other guys had 9 points, and a couple more were pretty close. Like, it was a pretty well spread out offensive performance. So this guy's box score doesn't particularly jump out, but I feel like Caleb Williams just sort of sneaky makes a lot of things happen for this Georgetown team. And when I'm looking at these two rosters and trying to compare them, like, okay, maybe your front court rotation for Georgetown can kind of cancel out what Pharrell Payne contributes. The guards are different, but they both have their strengths. Maryland doesn't really have like a wing comparable to a Caleb Williams. I would say he's not quite as big as an Elijah Saunders or a George Turkson, but he's more mobile than the two of them and bigger than an Andre Mills. So he's just sort of this tweener that I don't think the Terps have a great matchup for with Solomon Washington out with an injury. So he's my kind of like sneaky. I think how he performs could really swing this game, in one team's favor or another. What do you think of that take?
Yeah, I like that take. I do think Caleb Williams is sort of the Swiss Army knife, like unsung hero of this team, where a lot of his contributions maybe don't necessarily come up in a box score. And sometimes that's shorthand for just describing like a bad basketball player. But
Sure.
like in this case, like Caleb Williams is actually good. And if you
Yeah, I
watch,
agree.
like, you'll see, I think, part of Georgetown's improvement this year isn't just bringing in these impact transfers, but it's also getting internal development out of a guy like Caleb Williams, who showed some real flashes last year as kind of part of that rotation. And this year, I think he's taking on a much bigger role. And I would agree with that take that he's extremely important, especially in this matchup where, a guy like Solomon Washington's out, and it's like, all right, what do we do with Caleb Williams? And so maybe we see Georgetown try to take advantage of that matchup.
Yeah, I think that'd be great. Just the dude who can pass, dribble, shoot, defend, all the things you want in one bigger body is pretty important. Any other matchups that we haven't talked about here, or guys on this Georgetown team you think, hey, this guy might have a night, or there's something about the matchup that kind of makes them stand out to you?
Well, we've talked about the front court a little bit, and so I did want to just kind of mention that it was a really sleepy first half for Georgetown against Morgan State, especially on the glass, where they go into the break and they're being out-rebounded by 5. And so they were able collectively to kind of erase that deficit. They ended up winning the rebounding battle. Some of it was Holly Fanua. He finished with 8 rebounds. He led the team. And it was kind of similar to what I've heard you describe happened with Pharrell Payne in this last game, where he had the 8 rebounds, but you felt like he could have had maybe like 4 or 5 more. And it was just like batting the ball around and not grabbing it with 2 hands. And so you kind of felt like you could have gotten a little bit more out of juice there. But needless to say, against a guy like Pharrell Payne, you cannot have a sleepy rebounding half. You can't have a sleepy rebounding 5 minutes. Like, you have to be locked in on the glass because he will make you pay for it.
Yeah, conversely, on the Maryland side, they had that stretch early in the second half where rather than push it to 15, they let it get down to 7. And it was a little like play with their food kind of vibes, it felt like. And yeah, Pharrell Payne dropped a couple, had the dropsies for a few minutes. Like, that's not going to get it done against a team like this, because you're going to have guards crash the glass and just snatch it and take off. And that's not a great recipe. Just in terms of storylines for this game, I'm not crazy big on narratives and things like that, but like, I think both these teams really kind of need to win this game. And just not even from like a resume building perspective, but just the internal program development. You're Ed Cooley. This is year 3. You got to show like, we are better. This is like a thing moving in the right direction. You've got an assortment of DMV talent. You've got a guy in Malik Mack who, by all accounts, was interested in coming to Maryland. He's got the Maryland logo tattoo on him. You got DHS there. You've got Isaiah Abraham. Like, you got Caleb Williams. These are DMV guys. I think winning this and showing you're the preeminent team in the DMV would be huge for them, especially as they're competing for recruits like a Baba Oladotun, who, both teams are in his Final Four along with Arkansas and Kentucky. He just announced today. So, they each have a potentially 25% chance of ending up with this prized DMV recruit. Like, this is a big moment for Ed to just show like, hey, we're doing something. He's the coach of the two that was willing to take on this matchup, so it can't really come back and bite you in the ass if you're him. And then for Buzz Williams, like, people were out, I think, after the UMBC exhibition score, even if they weren't at the game. Coppin State win, I think, helped a little bit to restore a little faith, but just the program, like, I hate using this term, but like, the buzz is kind of low around this team going into the season. So this would be just a moment to like capture fans' attention locally and be like, oh, like, okay, well, I don't know if Georgetown's any good or not this year, but we beat Georgetown. So like, that's something to sell a few more tickets, get a few more butts in seats, and maybe just get a little bit more excitement around both programs.
Yeah, really important for both sides. I think that this is the second game of the season. For Ed Cooley, he's long said that the schedule is a reflection of the state of the program. And so to have such a big regional matchup that we haven't had in a while against this Maryland squad is, I think, really indicative of the kind of season he's expecting to have. And then for Buzz Williams to be coaching this matchup in his second official game in College Park, I mean, that's a big deal. And then you look down the line at, there's maybe some recruiting implications for sure, as we found out today, but also, looking down the line to the NCAA tournament, I've heard a number of people say, I think Georgetown's a tournament team. I think Maryland's a tournament team, but I haven't really seen anybody confidently say that for either team. And so looking down the line, this could actually have some pretty big tournament implications for either side. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot at play in this one, and that's just the joy of a Georgetown Maryland game. This is why we need it every year.
Yep, absolutely. Karl, let's start to wrap this one up with maybe just predictions. I don't if you're comfortable being on the spot here, how do you see this one playing out?
I'm tending more towards believing that this will kind of be a rock fight. Both these teams are pretty gritty defensive teams.
Agreed.
Yeah, I don't expect a lot of like beautiful offense, beautiful jump shooting in this game. I think it will be a lot of defense, a lot of physicality, a lot of getting out in transition and trying to capitalize off opponent turnovers or opponent misses. I'm leaning towards Georgetown winning this game. I think that they've got a little bit more experience. I think as you get a little bit deeper into the rotation, I think I trust them a little bit more, especially with some of the injuries on the Maryland side. One thing with Georgetown is they played 11 guys in the first half against Morgan State. And now some of that is, hey, we're just going to get these guys some run, first game of the season, whatever. But it's, I kind of wonder too, looking ahead to Maryland, like knowing that Buzz likes to use his bench, hey, let's get these guys out there. Let's get them some run, heading into this game so that, hey, when we have to kind of fight fire with fire, so to speak, we have guys who, are ready to go.
On the Department of Hoops Network, we have a Georgetown podcast, the Finger Wag podcast. Those guys do an awesome job, and they made this point just about this Georgetown team should be ready to like take people's lunch, early in the season here by the way they're going to play basketball. And that's kind of what I think. Like if Maryland were healthy and this game was played a month from now, I think I would lean Terps, but just where we're at, I would go 51-49 maybe in favor of Georgetown here. It's almost a pick'em game for me. Maryland is favored by 10 most places I've seen. I would absolutely take Georgetown given the points here because I do think this will be close. Like whichever team, if they win 72-68, like that kind of game, it wouldn't really shock me here. So I think I'll give Georgetown the slight edge. I do think this is a really good team. And like I said, they need it. I think this would maybe jumpstart some things for them. And Maryland, if you're just competitive and close, you can at least say, hey, we were shorthanded, and it's a little easier to, to survive any complications from that as long as you don't come in and get your doors blown off, essentially. Karl, any last points you want to make or anything like that? And if not, please tell people where they can find more of your great analysis on both these teams.
Oh, well, thank you. I appreciate that. No real, further notes from me. One thing I did want to shout out that you're doing, that you posted on Twitter. As we're coming upon the holiday season, there's a lot of people in the DMV who have been affected by food insecurity. And so Matt started a Capital Area Food Bank fundraiser that I would recommend. It would be awesome if everybody could go check that out, donate if you have the means. Really great heart behind what you're doing. And I think it'd be really cool to see the DMV Hoops community rally behind that. So as for me, though, my tag's on there at KHeiserCBB. You can find most of my work. I'll post it to Twitter if I write something or if I make a video. I also post a lot on TikTok at Gym Range Pod, so you can go find me over there as well.
Yeah, again, an awesome follow. If you like this DMV basketball stuff in general, it's worth it, whichever one of these teams you're rooting for. I'm imagining there are a few Georgetown fans watching this preview here as well. I appreciate you shouting that out. Yeah, just for folks, if you haven't seen this, are going to auction off some co-hosting opportunities, I guess, of specifically this podcast, our Wizards podcast, Believe in Wizards, whichever one somebody wants to do. So essentially, if you make a donation of any dollar amount to the Capital Area Food Bank at the link that will be in this episode description, or you can go find it at Matt Modderno on Twitter, that's your opportunity to come on, co-host an episode. So we'll do kind of a drawing from all the people that donate, and then the largest single donor will get an opportunity to host it with me. And I'll bring in, if you're listening to this, you're a Terps fan, I'll bring in a former Terp or somebody cool to co-host the episode with us, so you get a really good experience out of it. And again, hopefully we can do some good for some local folks. So thanks for bringing that up, Karl. Appreciate you. All right, everybody. We'll see how this goes. Got some stuff lined up for after the game here on Friday that we'll keep you posted about. Go check out all the great stuff that Jeff and the guys are doing over at Inside Maryland Sports, InsideMDSports.com, here on IMS Radio, all that good stuff. If they're watching this on YouTube, please hit the like button for us. We always appreciate that stuff. Rate, review, subscribe. And until next time, fear the podcast.